Y'all, I had to switch up coffee cups just to get through our segment today and Jodi Hildenbrandt's book that we've been reviewing. And we're going to appropriately start off with Chapter 11, Triggers. Hello, Sofa Squad, and welcome back to the sofa. Sofa's behind me. Roscoe's on it. My name's Paul. I'm in front of it. Y'all, we are continuing on this journey, and a journey it is. We're still reading this right here. I swear we're going to move on to bigger and better things, y'all. I have another book by Jodi to read. I don't know if we can get through that one. Definitely moving on to others in the Cringe Binge Book Club after this, okay? Before we even think about circling back to one of her things, because I just am like done, okay? But appropriately so, we're starting off with Chapter 11. I don't know if you can see it. Triggers. I mean, honestly, and you saw in the beginning, I had to switch I had to make a damn coffee cup up just for this one. I'm just here for the damn Cringe Binge. But I might have to double it with Can't Roll My Eyes Hard Enough and this, because this book gives both of these, okay? Now, if you're new, if this is like the first video of this, y'all think this is like part 4 or 5 of this. I read as much as I can get through before my body rejects the book, okay? And at this point, it doesn't take much. So I would like to say we can get through the rest of the book, but I'm not going to even sit here and pretend. There's just, I seriously doubt it. There will probably be another one after this. Will probably be a 6-part series, and then we'll put them all together in one for people who like to just hear the whole thing or whatever. So, and all I do is just read. This is not a serious read because I stop and make commentary along the way. So this ain't like some Audible book or something like that. That's what I'm trying to get at, okay? Anyways, now look, if you want to follow Roscoe and I outside the old YouTube, we're on the Instagram. On the Instagram. It's on the screen. It's in the description. Alrighty. Buckle up. Roscoe, you okay back there? Roscoe is nervously licking his foot. I think it's a self-soothing thing. He knows that I'm about to read her book, and he's like, I'm going to soothe myself. Lick, lick. I'm going to soothe myself. Lick, lick. So, Roscoe, honey, it's okay. It's okay, buddy. Well, let's just let him bathe and let's get to read him. Chapter 11, Triggers. The word trigger simply means you become aware that you are feeling emotion. When you feel triggered, it literally means you are awake to either comfortable or uncomfortable emotions. I would venture to say she was a little bit triggered when they yanked her out of that damn house. Anyways, triggers like emotions are not good or bad or right or wrong. They are literally energy that is moving through you as emotion. Well, she felt that energy moving when they pulled her on out of that house. Y'all, I can't get through like literally every sentence in here. I just immediately go back to how triggered she was when they ripped her out of the house. I mean, literally, she had the good spirit moving through her, right? I mean, come on now. Okay, I'm going to try not to make references to that every other sentence, or we'll be here all day, okay? I'm sorry, so let's get serious. This is a very serious thing here. Okay, triggers like emotions are not good or bad or right or wrong. They are literally energy that is moving through you as emotion. Anytime you feel emotion, it means you first had a thought. Your thoughts and your perceptions tell you stories, lies, and then you feel an emotion. It is vital to then tell yourself the truth about stories you experience rather than distort them. You know we had to say distort in the first paragraph. The purpose of a trigger is to draw your attention to the fact that you are feeling, and therefore it means you were thinking prior to your emotions. Triggers give you vital information about yourself and your experiences. They invite you to be curious and investigate your thoughts and feelings. Triggers can be perceived as your best friend or your worst enemy, depending on how willing you are to explore uncomfortable emotions and be responsible for those emotions. Triggers are actually your allies. They are the gateway to awareness of self and others. You experience triggers around comfortable and pleasant emotions. You have triggers that create feelings of joy, contentment, satisfaction, peace, love, etc. These triggers might include, and here we go, a list: remembering fond childhood memories, thinking about an upcoming vacation to Hawaii, receiving a smile from someone you love, getting a raise at work that you have worked hard for, jumping into warm water and feeling soothed, being reunited with someone you've not seen in a year, Smelling rain in the desert, hearing a favorite song, eating your mother's home-cooked meal, kissing the love of your life. All of these experiences trigger feelings that are comfortable and positive. These are the types of experiences that create warm and soothing thoughts and memories. We typically don't acknowledge these types of experiences as triggers since the outcomes are so pleasant. Because they invoke emotion, they are still considered triggers. We also experience triggers that are unpleasant or uncomfortable. Many of us struggle to be curious and learn from these uncomfortable and unfavorable emotions. Yet these feelings can often be a passageway into incredible insight, vulnerability, and personal growth. These triggers can create feelings of negativity, control, distraction, anger, fear, loss, sadness, hurt, grief, confusion, blame, and distortion. They might include... Now, you know we had to say distortion. Here we go with another list. Drinking sour milk, finding out that your son fell off the slide and is hurt, hearing the sound of an ambulance in your neighborhood, watching an accident happen, waking up from a frightening dream, being unprepared for a meeting that starts in 10 minutes, watching a horror movie and feeling terrified, being called a loser by the opposing team, running out of hot water as you shower, having your girlfriend break up with you. When you feel an emotion and classify it as uncomfortable or unpleasant, it triggers you to become aware of what you are feeling and invites you to become curious about what you are thinking. Asking questions such as, why am I feeling this way? And what is causing me to react in this manner? Will help you to develop a curiosity for what you are perceiving, either in truth or distortion, and increase your self-awareness. From this position of awareness, you can choose to make conscious changes to what you think, and therefore to what you feel. Triggers can empower you to change your own thinking and behavioral patterns. Let me share with you a story about triggers and the perceptions that created them. Pay attention to all the words and descriptions in the story that possibly could create emotion, and then notice if the emotion is in truth or distortion. Put yourself in the shoes of the people to help you identify with them. Going to Egypt had always been on my bucket list, yet I did not know if I would ever have an opportunity to go and spend some time there. It's not a place you just casually drop over by the weekend. 2 years ago, however, I saw a possibility of making it a reality. I arranged my responsibilities and I was on my way. It was mid-August and I had picked up my son, Addison, from Spain. I surprised him with a hop, skip, and a jump from Spain over to Egypt for a week, and he was elated. When we got into Cairo, it was hot. It was a heat that was different than any heat I'd ever experienced, even though I'd been raised in the deserts of Arizona. According to the people of Cairo, this was the hottest time to visit in Egypt, and the best time because there were few tourists, so we scored. We had a private guide, Sammy, who was born and raised in Cairo, a private car, and an itinerary that packed the week. We went to many destinations, one of which was the pyramids of Giza, right outside of Cairo. The day we went to the pyramids, it was 103 degrees outside. We arrived in the morning to the noonday sun and walked up to the largest pyramid of the three, called Pyramid of Khufu. I hope I'm saying that right. Sammy was explaining the facts and details about the pyramids and what they were used for. He shared that this pyramid was the oldest and tallest of all other pyramids in Egypt. He also told us that several years ago, an earthquake hit Cairo and damaged the Khufu pyramid. I was amazed. This structure stood 481 feet in the air and was made of solid limestone and granite. This structure weighed thousands of millions of pounds, and it had stood since 2560 BC. I was in awe of its grandeur. Sammy took us around to one of the corners of the Khufu pyramid and told us that we could go in and see one of its chambers. But he told us you will need to crawl at some point because it gets really narrow. As I stood at the base of this mammoth structure, I thought to myself, this is awesome. I want to crawl in and see something that was built 2,500 years before Christ. What an experience of a lifetime. My son and I began climbing the stairs that led to the opening of the pyramid. Sammy told us that he would wait at the base for us to finish. As we stood at the entrance of the space, we had to immediately duck our heads to walk in. I am only 5'3" tall, so it was not a dramatic thing for me compared to the people who were 6 feet or taller. As we continued to descend, people were crawling out directly. On our left, it was close quarters, and I was grateful that there were not a lot of people coming in or going out. As we continued to follow the path for 3 minutes, the ceiling was getting lower, and within minutes we were on our hands and knees crawling deeper and deeper into the center of the pyramid. I began to be really triggered. Thoughts were flying around my head. I thought we were going to run out of air, and there are millions of pounds of limestone and granite all around me that could come crashing down any second, which would certainly end my life. And if you go any further, you aren't going to be able to get out, and you will be trapped in here forever. I had never been claustrophobic in my life until this moment. I began sweating profusely and feeling a sense of panic and doom. Now, I will say this, like what she's describing here, and I can be kind of claustrophobic, but not like intense. But what she's describing here, yes, I too would want to see the inside 100% and be like, oh, absolutely, without thinking. And let me tell you what, the panic attack that would happen, at this point in time, I'd probably be like, I'm good, right? But I could see myself like, you know, in my younger years being like, let's go. But all these thoughts she's talking about, again, if it's true, 100% I would be feeling that. I'd be like, what if it falls? What if something happens? Like, I've seen so many movies about this. Like, there's literally no way. Okay, we had been inside the pyramid for 10 minutes and I knew I could not go any further. I grabbed my son's foot and said, I'm going back up. He was disheartened and said, Mom, it is only a few more minutes. I told him that I was so triggered that I was beginning to have a physiological reactions and I needed to get out. He was thoughtful and said he was going to continue, so I flipped around alone. I scurrying as fast as I could back up to the top. I was trying desperately to manage my thoughts because I knew that my perceptions were causing me to be triggered emotionally. I ran into some people who were not going as fast as I would have liked. I tried to crawl quickly past them on the side where others were coming down, but it was too tight of a fit, so I was stuck. You can just see her bullying her way through this and making the pyramids all about her, right? That's exactly what she's going to do in this scenario, and I'm not trying to discount that I too could see I completely having this panic attack, but I can also see her making a monumental experience like the pyramids all about herself, okay? Everyone's going to have to join in now. All the while I was reframing it in my mind what the truth really was. The reality was this. I was inside of a 4,500-year-old pyramid that was almost 500 feet tall and thousands of millions of pounds of limestone and granite were directly over my head. I was vulnerable, to say the least. The truth was, I was in a little crawl space only wide enough for two bodies to squeeze through, side by side. I was at the mercy of many other people and their ability to move faster or not. The truth was it was 103 degrees outside and probably 120 to 130 degrees inside the pyramid. That alone, I don't care if it was a whole breezeway you could walk through the damn thing. That part right there would have had me saying, nope, you can tell me what it would look like inside. I will wait right here with my little fan and just sit here triggered and all that. I will wait right here triggered. We ain't going in there in that temperature. The truth was, even though there was an earthquake years before, the pyramid still stands today. The truth was, I was being triggered by fear, distortions, and I began to physiologically react to what I was thinking and desperately trying not to believe. The truth was, even though I wanted to see this room, I was vulnerable, and I allowed my fear to overtake me. Excuse me. I'm starting to reject the book. The book is being currently rejected. I needed to get out so I could calm myself down. I was managing my thoughts the best I could and kept telling myself, Jodi, you will be out soon. You don't ever have to go back into a space like that ever again. Sammy is outside waiting for you. My triggers were still present and I began to cry as I was continuing to make my ascent out of the pyramid. I could see her being like, I'm broken. I'm broken. I mean, I could just, again, making this entire experience about her. She probably needed so much attention before and after this. I could see the opening ahead and I prayed that these people would move just a little bit faster. Finally, I reached the opening and I crawled out and I was met by the Egyptian sun. I was so grateful I was out of there. I thought about my son and hoped he was okay. I knew I was out of control, and so I surrendered that thought very quickly. I was dripping with sweat as I walked back down the steps to where Sammy was sitting underneath the shade of an awning. He asked me where Addison was, and I told him that he was still in the pyramid. I felt triggered. I felt shame. I felt not enough. Oh my, I love how she slid that. I love how she slid that in. She took a damn 15-minute smoke break after that line right there. She stayed on the damn clock too. She was like, I get paid for this one now. She's like, I ate and left no damn crumb. Oh my God, y'all, I cannot with this. I'm sorry. Hold on. Oh my gosh. I'm having a panic attack. I'm having a panic. I'm triggered. I'm not enough. Sammy, play that tune one more time. Oh my gosh. Okay. Hold on, y'all. This is very serious. This is very serious. I felt like there was something wrong with me. There is. There was not a feeling, girl. You were right. No psychicness about this. Dead ringer, you're right. That I felt like something was wrong with me, that I reacted like that, and I did not make it into the chamber of the pyramid. I began crying and trying to hide my tears. Sammy saw that I was upset and came over and asked what happened. I told him that I tensed up, couldn't control my thoughts, panicked, and came out. He was very validating and told me that he doesn't go into those tunnels for the same reason. I immediately felt heard and seen, and not as triggered as I had before. I mean, it needs a whole damn psych evaluation at the damn pyramids. You know what I'm saying? Like, again, it's people like her, you can spot them a mile away. I'm telling you. 15 minutes later, Addison resurfaced and said, Mom, if you would have continued, it was only another 2 minutes on your knees, and then the chamber opened up, and you could have stood up. I told him that I could not have made it. I had to leave when I did. I had actually waited too long as it was. He assured me I did not miss anything. It was just a big room with nothing but in it but history and things like that. He didn't say the history thing. He just said there was a big room with nothing in it. He said with disappointment. Now again, let's pause and revisit this. Look at the feelings, look at the things she's talking about. Does she, let's have a little quiz, boys and girls. Does she offer the same or whatever you call it to the victims in her cases? Understanding and empathy, I guess, is what I'm looking for. She knows what these feelings are like. Do we see that in her behavior towards others? Click A for yes, B for no. But here's the thing. This is what blows my mind, because in this is what I'm thinking right here. Oh, this would be a punishment. She made the kids crawl in there back and forth, up and down during the heat or whatever. She'd have them out there talking about, I need you to rearrange the damn blocks in the pyramid. This is just who she is, right? But again, she needs all this special attention if it's her, right? And that's the angering part of it, okay? Triggers can come from stimuli that are neutral to anyone who is not experiencing them as a trigger. However, to the person experiencing them, triggers are highly charged with emotions, thoughts, reactions, and intense memories. Triggers can also come from any stimulus, experience, event, emotion, memory, dream, sensory input, etc. that the brain connects to a past experience, which then alters the person's emotional and or mental state, and often in a reactionary manner. Triggers can be experienced physically, emotionally, mentally, sexually, financially, socially, spiritually, and so forth, as reminders or responses from the mind remembering past experiences as it attempts to interpret the past, present, and future. Anything or anyone has the power to trigger us, but not everything does trigger us. We are only triggered by things, people, events, emotions, memories, and so forth, which we deem important to us or which have emotional power and authority over us. Therefore, what may be triggering to one person is not at all triggering to another. We need to be sensitive not only to our own triggers, but also to the triggers of others. By being aware of both ourselves and others, we can address triggers quickly and not allow them to continue to trigger more and more emotions, thoughts, beliefs, expectations, and fear. Okay, pause for a second. So notice how she is like really going off on the little list of things, like the multi things, like the last 3 or 4 paragraphs, like over and over and over. I'm like, oh my God, it's literally just word salad, okay? Now, side note, I was just reminded of this. Is like a miniature story time deviation. Okay, I was just reminded of this by her obnoxiousness. So I'm recording this with my friend Derek. If you follow me, you know that he's visiting in this time frame that you're probably seeing this video, or was. He's gone by now. He's leaving today, but regardless, that's not the point. We went to a restaurant last night. This Chinese restaurant in Chapel Hill was amazing. I posted on my Instagram. This woman comes in and sits down like behind us, and then a few minutes later another woman comes in and sits down. The original woman, I don't know what they were really talking about, but it had something to do about, I don't know. Her tone of voice, and I'm gonna make this up, just imagine how Jodi and Ruby talk, but it was like, well, what we're going to do is after you get through this course, we'll make sure you're certified. very condescending, okay? Now also, when the waiter came up or whatever, she was like, I need gluten-free this. I've had it here and been able to get it before. And like the way she said it was like an immediate like, there's gonna be an issue if you don't give me what I want, that type of thing. So anyways, long story short, I'm listening to her and I told her, I leaned in, I was like, the people behind us are absolutely insufferable. Like, I'm like, and I said, I'm putting my money on it that there's going to be something wrong with the food when it comes. Y'all, go on and guess what happened. We get up, we're starting to leave, and we got out there. I was like, did you hear them? And I was like, no. And he goes, the woman you're talking about was saying, this isn't cooked. And I was like, I told you. I mean, literally, I'm sitting here like, of course, like, I already know everything about this human being that I need to know, right? Like, I can tell, literally, I'm like, it's the condescending, talking loud enough to where everyone can hear them. It's the Jodis, the Rubies. We've seen it before. I'm like, nothing's going to ever be wrong. They're going to always need special attention, always find something wrong, always want to complain. She's at the damn pyramids making it about herself. And I'm not trying to discount that somebody can have a panic attack. I 100% get that, because reading it, I'm like, oh yeah, like completely. But I'm like, oh, trust me, everyone in her vicinity was going to suffer through this with her, right? Same as like everyone in the restaurant with that lady last night was going to have to suffer through her uncooked food. And it probably wasn't even uncooked. It's probably just her distortion. Anyways, let's keep reading more lists. For example, let's imagine you watch a scary movie which unconsciously triggers fear in you. When it's over, you ask your friend to walk to your car with you. The friend asks, are you scared? You are unaware that you are, and you say, no. Your friend begins to tease you, and you feel silly, annoyed, and even a little angry at being teased. You are still not aware of what triggered your feelings. As you drive home and get ready for bed, you are obsessing over the sequence of events. You can't figure out why you are so upset, sad, and annoyed. In this example, the person was triggered by the frightening parts in the movie. By having to walk to the car alone in the dark, by the friend's teasing, and then by the emotions of embarrassment, anger, and sadness. At any point, if this person could have recognized their fear from the movie, they could have acknowledged it, validated it, and let it go. This cycling is an example of reacting to unacknowledged triggers with emotions and behaviors, but not fully appreciating why you are feeling and behaving the way you are. Your reactions to your triggers can be very frustrating and uncomfortable for you and those that are close to you if you are reacting to something that you are oblivious to. You create and reinforce painful triggers when you engage in the following. Here we go. Another bullet point. Addictive behavior and thinking. You already know. Distorted thoughts and behaviors. Resentments. Fears and not being acknowledged. Understood and managed, expectations for self or others that don't come to fruition, entitled thoughts or behavior. Yeah. Managing your triggers is the next section. How can you learn to manage your triggers? Learn to recognize them. Recognize what triggers you, as well as how your physiology and emotions react to your triggers. You must be able to recognize when you become triggered. You can feel them as sensory characteristics, such as smells, sights, sounds, taste, touch, memories, thoughts, dreams, situations, events, fantasies, fears, expectations, holidays, etc. Oh my God. I swear to God, if you took out the list of stuff, the book would be 5 pages. I mean, I'm not joking. Feel the emotion around your triggers. Recognize what emotions are caused by the trigger and be willing to understand what the emotion and the trigger are trying to tell you. Your triggers are not bad. They are only information for you about yourself, your present and past environments, and your experiences. Be responsible for your triggers. Understand what the triggers are your allies to teach you about yourself so you can choose to reframe them into truth and be free from painful and faulty information about your experiences, yourself, and others. They can also be red flags that warn you of physical, emotional, and spiritual or financial dangers. Triggers alert you to the distorted pains and historical traumas that need to be processed and released. Don't run from your triggers. Be accountable for and to them, and they will teach you what you need to be released from your pain, distortions, and faulty perceptions. Triggers need to be put into proper perspective, understood, and validated. Then they will stop triggering you. If you're willing to recognize your triggers as opportunities to heal the hurts, disappointments, expectations, traumas, and fears, you will free yourself from the pattern of reacting in distortion to life's twists and turns. You will feel more comfortable in your own skin and more connected to self, others, and God. All right, now we're going to move on to what I would say is probably Jodi's favorite chapter. Chapter 12, Pain. Can't make this up. Let's keep going. Being human is a beautiful gift. Life allows you to grow through experience. Experiences bring opportunities to perceive and have new awareness. And some experiences bring pain, which invites you to choose either truth or distortion. Do I even need to say it about truth and do I even need to say it at this point? This involves accepting your vulnerability. Your behavior, coupled with your perceptions and your emotions, gives you and others evidence of whether or not you're accepting your vulnerability, whether or not you're willing to acknowledge mentally and emotionally that you are human and therefore vulnerable to experience. And in some of those experiences, there will be pain, whether you are conscious of it or not. You are choosing how you perceive your experiences, and consequently how you feel about your experiences and how you will choose to behave in those experiences. Living with vulnerability means accepting that every perception is yours to choose, either in truth or distortion. And with every chosen perception, there is corresponding emotion that follows. Once you choose to perceive and feel, then you choose to act or behave from either the position of truth or distortion. Being vulnerable also means accepting that some of your experiences will include pain. This pain, discomfort, disappointment, sadness, grief, out of control, fear, loss, confusion, loneliness, distress, hurt, troubled, malaise, illness, injuries, physical limitations. I mean, she covers it all. But just remember this. When she was getting cuffed, she had shoulder issues for the backseat of the police car. But she has no qualms inflicting pain on children and everybody else. So just keep that in mind. This is inescapable and inevitable. Inevitable means certain to happen, unavoidable, completely predictable. Like she has to say that, right? I've never seen someone feel the need to break things down to this level. Zero confidence in the reader, right? Okay, so if we did not experience inevitable pain, we would never feel a need to humble ourselves. Honestly assess an experience, surrender what is not ours to control, have faith in God, nor take responsibility for our part in all that life offers us. We would never search for empathy for ourselves or others, nor would we ever experience connection. Inevitable pain is necessary for each of us to make choices and have outcomes which produce another opportunity to choose and have additional outcomes. Each experience affords you opportunities to choose in truth or distortion, and whichever you choose creates an outcome. These outcomes that you choose give you information about life, about pain, about truth, about distortion, and about what you choose to make, and about what choice you want to make next. I mean, it's so much word salad, you start jumbling everything together, right? As you are conscious and choose, you can learn about the need for inevitable pain. Such inevitability, painful experiences are not bad or, please hold, meant to hurt you or destroy you. Rather, they are gifts that give you opportunities to make choices in truth and learn how to choose in honesty, responsibility, and humility, in spite of painful experiences. The outcome is connection. Well, I hope she's getting connected in prison. I hope she's taken all this in, right? Because I can almost guarantee you she's not. Inevitable pain comes from three sources. Number 1, outcomes of your choices. Number 2, outcomes of other choices. Number 3, things that just happen. Examples of inevitable pain. We're going to dedicate a whole little thing to it with lots of bullet points. She was very excited about this section. Very excited. My choices and outcomes. You forgot to winterize the outside spigot. 2 months later, a water pipe breaks from frozen water that swells and defrosts. You don't lock your car and someone breaks into it. You go out in 105 degree sun for 7 hours. You don't wear sunscreen and you get a sunburn. Others' choices and outcomes. Your spouse has an addiction and won't get help to change. Your 16-year-old daughter turns on the heater in the pool during the month of October for a party. She says she turned it off, but you get a bill for $1,800 the next month, revealing she did not. Your friends gossip about you and it gets back to you. You know half this stuff happened to her. You know everybody's talking about her. Things that just happen. Electricity goes out in the middle of your surgery. You find mouse droppings in the box of cereal you're eating. You slide off the road while driving in a snowstorm. There is another type of pain called optional pain. Unlike inevitable pain, optional pain is not necessary to experience. However, many people choose it because they are unconscious of its existence. Optional pain is avoidable. It comes from the stories you tell yourself about your experiences and assumptions about what those experiences mean about you. These stories, which are not the truth, are the inner dialogue you hear about yourself and others, which are reinforced by deeply held, distorted thoughts about your worth and value. These stories are not the truth about the reality of the experience. However, when you engage with them and believe them, you will stay in a perpetual state of distortion until you are willing to tell yourself the truth about the experience. I'm sorry, y'all. At this point, the words distortion and the context that she leaves in literally has me rolling on the floor. Okay, I cannot. I have never seen somebody overuse a word. It's like she just learned it right before she wrote this damn book and was so excited to tell us all about it. I'm talking show and tell for 120 pages about distortion and damn truth. Oh my gosh. Okay. If you tell yourself a story about the experience and truth, it means you're being honest, responsible, and humble. If you tell yourself a story in distortion, it means you're choosing to be dishonest, irresponsible, and prideful, which will create perceptions of distortion, feelings of fear, and desire to control. I mean, just by her own definition, it's like this woman is absolutely distorted, right? But it's like the irony that she doesn't realize this. And I still come back to her. I'm like, this woman was like supported by the church and like this very well-known figure in this world. How did no one have a 5-minute conversation with her and be like, this woman is completely unhinged. She does not need to be anywhere near another human being, number one, especially in an environment of giving them advice or telling them what to do. I don't see how, I do not see this. Here's how you are deceived by distortion. So she's going to tell us how she did it. When you have an experience and you choose to perceive it in distortion, optional pain, rather than truth, you will hear consciously or unconsciously these few words. And that means... I want you to pay careful attention to that phrase. That phrase signifies you have made a choice. You have chosen to assign meaning to your experience. And when you choose to perceive in distortion, you choose to believe that experience means something about you personally. Either that you are enough self-adulation or not enough self-denigration. Distortion will say, and that means you are... And then we have a bullet point list. Stupid, not pretty enough, foolish or unworthy, unlovable, entitled to have what you want, special, always right, not enough, more than enough. Distortion assaults you with the lie that your worth, value, and identity are variables that can rise or fall with the choices you make. The truth is they are not. Your eternal worth is constant and no amount of distortion can alter your status as a child of God. Do not injure your soul by choosing to believe distortion's lies. Choosing in distortion instead of truth will make your soul sick. The healing balm for a soul suffering under the weight of distortion is repentance. When you repent, you learn to tune your soul to the frequency of truth. Okay, here we go. Here are some examples of the stories we tell ourselves presented in distortion versus presented in truth. Remember, optional pain comes from the same three sources as inevitable pain, outcomes of your choices, outcomes of others' choices, and circumstances that just happen. So the next little section is experiences presented in distortion, optional pain, my choices and outcomes, and then we're going to do bullet points, of course. I dropped my cell phone and it broke, and that means I'm an idiot. I pulled my gloves off and my wedding ring came off with them never to be seen again. And that means I'm unworthy to wear a ring. I won the spelling bee, and that means I'm smarter than everyone else in my class. I am undefeated for the year, and that means winning is in my blood and I don't lose. Others, choices, and outcomes. A colleague said she liked my outfit that I wore, and that means I looked the best out of anyone in the office. I gave my 2-year-old a sip of my soda and she coughed it out all over my face, and that means I'm a bad dad. My girlfriend said she doesn't like me, and that means I will never be loved by anyone. I was promoted at work, and that means everyone thinks I'm a great guy. Anyone who disagrees is wrong. I was invited to the party and Rick wasn't, and that means I'm more important than he is. Circumstances that just happen. I slipped on ice when I walked to my car after work, and that means I'm clumsy and foolish. Rain always makes me break out in a rash, and that means I look stupid. The tire blew, and that means I'm a bad driver. I won $1,000 in the casino, and that means I'm the best gambler there. You can tell that, again, I'm like, she is in distortion. You know she thinks all these ways. Very ego-based. Very ego-based. Now we move on to experiences presented in truth. My choices and outcomes. I dropped my cell phone and it broke, and that means it broke. I'm disappointed and upset that it was so fragile and yet expensive. I pulled my gloves off and my wedding ring came off with it, never to be seen again, and that means I lost my ring. My fingers shrink in the winter, and I will now pay more attention to that in the future. I feel sad and disappointed. I won the spelling bee, and that means, after working hard, I was able to accomplish my goal. I am not worried about how others performed. Rather, I'm proud of how well I did. I can hear her right now. Dear God, help us all. I mean, come on now. I won the game tonight, which made me feel undefeated for the year. And that means I'm grateful for my dad, who taught me all those years growing up. Next year, I'm going to have to work just as hard. Others' choices and outcomes. A colleague said she liked my outfit that I wore, and that means that she likes the same type of dress I do. I gave my 2-year-old a sip of soda and she coughed out all over my face, and that means her little throat can't handle soda yet. My girlfriend said she wants to break up, and that means I'm sad because, well, we won't spend as much time together. I don't know why she doesn't like me. I still believe I'm a good person. I will ask her and change what is in my power to change if I agree with her advice. I was promoted at work, and that means my boss appreciates my work. I will ask him what I'm doing right and how I can improve. I was invited to the party and Rick wasn't. And that means I get to go to the party on Friday. I wonder how Rick feels for not being invited. I'll go ask him. Can't roll my damn eyes hard enough to go, oh, dear Jesus, there's just a little bit more. Oh, Lord, get us through this next little bit, please. Y'all, come on now. Circumstances that just happen. I slipped on the ice when I walked to my car after work, and that means I might need to see a chiropractor to get my back fixed. This is also the second time that I've fallen this week. I'll be very careful, especially when it's dark. I don't know why I break out in a rash when it rains, and that means I need to go see a doctor and we'll find out what the hell that is. She didn't say hell, but the rest of the sentence is verbatim. The tire blew, and that means I must have run over something. I won $1,000 at the casino, and that means I have almost broken even with my gambling activities tonight. Okay, we were out of the... Take a swig from whatever. We're out of that section. Optional pain always takes the position of dictating to you what your choices mean about you. The truth is your choices don't mean anything about you. The truth is your worth, value, and divinity that I talked about in the introduction of this book are set and infinite. Your choices mean something about what you choose, either truth or distortion. Not something about who you are. What you choose always creates an outcome, and that outcome will either be in truth or distortion. You will then choose again to perceive that outcome in either truth or distortion, which creates yet another outcome. You will continue to choose in one direction or the other until you realize that you are creating exactly what you are receiving. If you don't like what you're creating, you can change it anytime you wish by making choices in truth. Choosing truth is another way to say you are choosing to repent, feel sorrow, make reparations, commit not to repeat the distortion, and shift your perceptions back into truth. I want to share a story. I'm actually angry that she's going to share another damn story. Literally, it just pissed me off, okay? You might have seen it in my face. It's a story that's a mixture of inevitable and optional pain. I want you to pay attention to when the people in the story are choosing inevitable pain and when they are choosing optional pain. Reading the story will be your opportunity to point pain out. The pain is the damn story itself. I'm pointing it out right now. And recognize how everything is experienced in the form of truth versus distortion. However, anytime you choose optional pain, distortion, it is always because you are trying to control your perceptions of pain, truth. It is always because you are trying to control your perceptions of inevitable pain. That statement is powerful. Watch for the inevitable pain, truth, in the story and notice how the person gives it to the optional pain, distortion, in an attempt to control the discomfort of their vulnerability. Inevitable pain is a natural and necessary part of life. Watch for inevitable and optional pain and identify both types in the story. Okay, let's reluctantly get into it. It was 1985, on a hot summer night in August, in my hometown of Tucson, Arizona. I was in the kitchen with my friend Steve cooking hamburgers for dinner, and we were planning on watching a movie after we ate. We were both 16 years old and friends from school. Steve had gone to the local video store rental and rented a movie for the night. My parents were out on a date for the evening, and my 13-year-old brother had been at some activity all day and was not expected home until after 10 p.m. This feels naughty already. As the meat was cooking, I realized we did not have any buns for the hamburgers. This definitely feels like a naughty story. She's definitely writing in subliminals. I turned to Steve to tell him the situation right as the first lightning bolt crashed into the mountain range behind my home. We both jumped, then laughed because we knew it was monsoon season, which meant torrential downpour, majestic lightning, and booming thunder that would make anyone jolt. Steve graciously accepted the responsibility of driving to the store and getting buns for the burgers, and ran outside with his windbreaker held up over his head as to not get drenched by the copious rain. With Steve gone, I was alone in the house, so I turned on my favorite radio station, and was listening to Madonna's new hit single, Lucky Star. I felt happy and yet a bit scared. This is the perfect setting in all horror movies I've watched, I thought. It's pouring rain, dark outside, and there's a madman on the loose. You see, over the last 8 months in our town, there had been a man who was breaking into people's homes right around dinner time. His strategy was to tie up the men in the house and then the women right in front of their loved ones and then leave. The people of Tucson, am I saying that right? Tucson? I can't pronounce it correctly. Called him the prime time artist, and everyone was talking about him. Whether I was at school, the store, church, a movie, with friends, everyone was talking about this man and where he would strike next. And though I did not have any conscious memories of my own assaults at the time, I spent many conscious hours planning in my mind how I would protect myself if I ever encountered him. It was dark by the time Steve left to grab the buns, and I thought to myself, the store is only 15 minutes away. I'll get everything out on the table and we will be set to eat when he gets back. As rain, lightning, and thunder pounded the ground and lit up the sky, I fought back my fear as I thought of the many times I had imagined this prime-time artist breaking into my home and hurting me. However, I told myself I was safe. The doors were locked and Steve would be home soon as I turned up the radio louder to drown out my thoughts. About 10 minutes later, the phone hanging on the kitchen wall rang. I turned down the music and answered the phone. "Hello," I said, inquisitively. I heard nothing on the other end. I said it again. "Hello," with more intention in my voice. Still nothing on the other end. I hung the phone up right as another clap of thunder struck. Whoosh! Fear officially struck my heart as all sorts of terrifying thoughts flew into my head. Was that him? Did he see Steve leave and now he knows I'm here alone? I immediately told myself to calm down. I was not going to allow my mind to run away with me. I walked back to the stove, flipped the burgers over, and began singing along with the music still playing in the background. Within another few minutes, the phone rang again. I was trying so hard to remain calm and talk myself out of the terror that was welling up inside of me. This time I decided to walk down the hallway to answer the phone, sitting on a table at the top of the hallway. The hallway gave access to all 4 bedrooms, but all of the bedroom doors were shut to keep the air conditioning in the center of the home. The phone rang several times as I approached it, and as I was trying to control my thoughts of doom and panic, I answered the phone and turned my back to the end of the hall so I had a clear view of anything that could possibly be coming towards me. "Hello?" I could feel the terror in my voice. I instantly heard very intentional heavy breathing into the mouthpiece of the phone, and before I could hang up, a voice on the other line said, "I am in the house!" The only thing I can explain to you is I went into shock. You would think that I would have run out of the house and gone to the neighbors or kept running until I ran down to the highway and flagged down a car, but no. I remember very clearly what happened to me in that instant. Everything slowed down for me. I was deliberate in my movements and intentional in my thoughts. I felt possessed by a power that was committed to my own survival, and I was ready to face my perpetrator. I remember starting to hang up the phone and then thinking, don't hang up the phone because he'll just call again. So I took the phone off the hook and I laid it down beside the base. As I walked down the hallway to go to the kitchen, I thought I need to go and get the biggest knife we have in the drawer and battle this man. Right as I reached the end of the hallway, the impossible happened. The phone rang. I stopped dead in my tracks and thought, okay, that is totally impossible. I just, totally took the phone off the hook. The only way for that to happen would be for the phone to be placed back on the cradle. My thoughts continued. He's in that back bedroom and he must have reached out of the door that I was just standing next to and put the phone back on the base after I walked away. I was too scared to turn around, and so in my dazed, adrenaline-pumping state, I walked into the kitchen as the phone continued to ring. I grabbed the biggest butcher's knife we had and walked back over and stood at the base of the hallway, facing all of the closed doors, knowing he was behind one of them. I saw at the top of the hallway that the phone had indeed been hung up, which confirmed he was in my home, and I was going to take him out. Now, I'm going to say this. If this is true, this is, making me freaked out because it's just that old story. Remember, where they call the operator? The call is coming from inside the house. I mean, this is kind of what nightmares are made out of, but I also think it's very telling that she is, going to kill the guy, right? I would have been gone, okay? I would have been, out of here. Gone. No, thank you. 911, please. Let me pause here. What in the world was I doing? I look back on this and I can see how out of my mind I was with fear. I was ready to take on a fully grown man who had been assaulting people for months with a knife that I had no idea how to use. It did not even occur to me that he could overpower me and use that very knife to harm me. Oh my goodness, what the power of distortion can do to you. Back to the story. I raised my knife in my right hand over my head and firmly commanded him to come out. I stood my ground as every horror movie I had ever seen flashed through my mind of this pivotal moment when the protagonist meets the antagonist. I had images of a creepy, bloody body walking out of the back room. I imagined a mangled face poking out of the doorway. All the visual garbage that Hollywood makes up to scare you to death was at the forefront of my imagination. Suddenly, the back bedroom doorknob started to turn. This was the door right next to the phone that I had been standing by. It was all lining up in my mind. I think I could say I was past feeling as I watched. The door turned. I heard a voice in a steady tone. "Jodi, I am coming out." As the doorknob turned to reveal the monster my mind had created, I thought, he knows my name. He's been following me for days. And with that thought, the door slowly opened and out came my little brother, Timmy. I could tell he was surprised when he saw the knife raised over my head, but he walked out boldly and casually said, "Are you crazy? What are you doing with the knife?" I was in a trance, trying to process the sudden shift. I was so overcome with the intensity of fear that I was not thinking clearly or rationally. As he walked out of the doorway, I lowered my arm and dropped the knife on the carpet. I began to involuntarily cry and shake. As he approached me with his arrogant swagger, I lunged at him, knocking him to the ground. I jumped on top of him and started pummeling him with all my might. He was underneath me, and I was out of control with fear and rage. I was swinging in a way that I was not conscious of the damage I was doing. This seems more on brand for her, right? All I remember feeling was the terror that had been mounting for the last 30 minutes of my imminent demise. The fear that I could have hurt my little brother if he had tried to surprise me from behind, and the rage that he would do something like that to me, knowing how frightened I had been for months about the man RAing people in our town. The next thing I know, Steve came out of the room as he heard all of the commotion. It was pulling me off Timmy, saying, "Jodi, stop, you're hurting him." I began swinging at Steve as I screamed at both of them. "How could you do this? How could you do this to me?" I ran to a corner of the living room and dissolved into a hysterical tears. I was reacting as if my worst nightmare had just come true. I had played it out in my head so many times that I was not processing all that had just happened. Timmy got up off the ground and threatened me by saying, "Are you nuts? Mom and Dad are going to be so mad at you." I knew he was right, and I didn't even care. I felt alone and so confused. My mind was racing. What had just happened? How did Steve leave and end up back in the back room? I saw him leave, and there are only two entrances into the house, and both would have come through the kitchen to get to the back bedroom. And the phone? Who was that calling on the phone? And how did they call from inside the house? Remember, there were no cell phones in 1985. All of these questions were swirling in my mind, and I was desperate to make sense out of what seemed impossible. My brother walked away, and Steve stood in the darkened living room, silently watching me as I was curled up in the corner sobbing. He finally walked over and knelt down and said, "Jodi, I'm so sorry. I had no idea that would scare you so badly." I looked up at him, desperate to understand what had happened. I began to ask him questions. "How did you get into the back bedroom?" He cleared his throat, timid and ashamed, and began to explain. When he left the house and was running to his car, Timmy was being dropped off by his friend's mom. They decided they would play a prank on me, so they took the screen off the back window, slid the window open, and crawled through. I asked, "How did you get the phone to ring? And who said they were in the house?" He then pulled out his dad's phone out of his bag. It looked like a mix of a huge brick and a child's toy. I had never heard of a cell phone before nor seen one. Though he did not call it that, he called it a car phone and said that his dad's work had provided this phone so he could make phone calls from his car. He was not sure if it would work outside of the car, but apparently it did. He added that they could hear me and everything I was doing, so they knew exactly when to say, "I'm in the house." I mean, this is all like, y'all, I mean, like literally, this is like next level on so many levels for everybody's part, right? If, again, it's true. I continued to ask him questions and he answered them all until I felt satisfied. I was crying intermittently as my mind and my body continued to ramp down. I said to Steve, "How could you do this to me, knowing the primetime artist is out there?" He looked at me dumbfounded and said, "I just thought it would be funny." Idiot, I thought. What was wrong with him? How could that be funny to anyone? Stupid, immature boys, I told myself. Steve went home after an hour of trying to make his condolences, and Timmy stayed clear of me for the remainder of the night. Sure enough, the next morning I was brought into my parents' room and asked about the events of the night before. Why was I holding a knife, threatening Timmy, and beating him up on the floor? I tried explaining what happened to my parents, yet they were only interested in Timmy. Probably because she had this reaction, whether it was something minor or major. Like, I envision her, this was her reaction to everything. You know what I'm saying? Let's continue. Being hurt and taking responsibility for his wounds. As I walked out of my parents' room, I remember thinking, here I am again, alone in this world, and knowing that there is no one to protect me or validate me in my experiences. Inevitable and optional pain are real, and everyone experiences both of them. Inside the story above was a noticeable mixture of inevitable and optional pain. The following examples are evidence of inevitable pain in the story, and she does little bullet points. The knowledge of the primetime artist, being afraid that Steve left and I was alone, the phone ringing and heavy breathing, the knowledge that someone hung the phone up, my brother playing a prank on me, Timmy acting like I was crazy for being upset, and validation of my boyfriend, and validation of my parents. And here are some examples of optional pain, which are chosen from a place of trying to control the inevitable pain. Thinking the primetime artist was going to hurt me, believing the rain was going to make it a scary night, telling myself stories that he was in the house, staying in the house ready to fight him, grabbing a knife, beating up my brother, not asserting to my parents what happened, feeling alone and misunderstood in the world. Inevitable pain is pain that you can't control. However, optional pain is completely within your control. You don't have to engage optional pain for any longer than you choose. Here's the paradox. Inevitable pain is necessary to grow, develop, and mature in this life. And optional pain is the destroyer of your ability to grow, develop, and mature in this life. It is up to you to know what type of pain you're experiencing in order to assess if it is healing you or destroying you. You're at the helm of your life. So here's the thing, and I come back to this. Well, first of all, so we're going to stop here for the day, okay? The next part is love, part 3. you know I'm gonna need to get my damn cup for that one. Here's the thing. And I say this with all of this, again, reading this and looking through the lens of, yet she didn't offer any of this stuff to any of her victims throughout life. It was like she just wanted to cause the same pain to everybody else. She didn't learn anything from it. She didn't digest it. She didn't take it. She could sit here and try and teach us all something with this BS, but the proof is in the pudding. She's not putting forth her own lessons. She is becoming the abuser. The bully becomes the abuser. The abused becomes the abuser, and that's what she's doing in this. And this whole thing, I mean, and again, I say that if it's true, because I think that number one, that she lies a lot. Number two, I think she lies a lot. And then number three, I just think that some of these stories are completely blown out of proportion. Now, granted, what she's describing there, I'm like, yes, that would scare the mess out of me, right? Please, like, who would not be scared over that? But her reaction to it, I'm like, well, I'm sure. And I would almost validate, let's say I all went that way, I would almost validate, I could see having an extreme reaction to that. Like, you know how, like, when you get scared and then you're like, oh, almost like your kids, like, oh my God, where's my kid or whatever. And then you find them and you're like, I'm going to kill you. Like that initial thing type thing. I see that with what she was just describing. That would have scared the mess out of me. Granted, I've seen so many horror films at this point, that doesn't help either. I guess that was my optional pain. But you see where I'm going with this. However, I think she was the type to have that reaction to everything. Like, it didn't matter what it was, she was going to overreact and blow up. And that's why our parents were like, why did you have a knife out for your brother today? Well, because of this. But yesterday's excuse was this, Jodi. You're just a psychopath, okay? And I'm sure that they were just over it at that point, right? I mean, my God, can you imagine growing up with her? Bless her siblings' hearts. Anyways, I would like to say the next video we're going to finish the book out, but there's no telling. My body might reject it because my body has rejected it at this point. So we're just going to wrap this up for this time. There's that. Let me know what you think down in the comment section. Roscoe is in distortion currently. He is choosing the optional pain. What are the lessons to be learned here? Roscoe's optional pain is that he chose to come in the room and sit through this book. He did ask specifically to come in and film this time. He did. He whispered it. He is currently in distortion. He is sleeping. He doesn't even know I'm talking about him. I'm going to start applying Jodi's psychology to Roscoe. He's like, oh my God, I'm just going to pretend to sleep. But he does ask that you drop some little sofas down the comment section so we can go down there and talk about this torrid book and all the other stuff we talk about here at the Sofa Squad. And until Roscoe and I do meander our way down there, we'll see y'all soon. I just wanted to say thank you again for watching the whole video, and also thank you for being part of the Sofa Squad. Special thanks to all the Patreon members, channel members from both of my channels, everybody who likes, shares, subscribes, comments in the comment sections. It helps the channel out so much. Now, don't forget, I do have that other channel, the podcast channel. That's where we go live, we hang out, we talk. We have kind of sort of a schedule, but just be sure and check it out. I'll put it up here on the screen. Also, if you're looking for merch, be sure to check out my Teespring store. I'll put that up here. And then, like I said in the beginning of the video, if you want to follow me and Roscoe on the Instagram, go on, check it out. It's right here on the screen again. But once again, thank you very much. I really appreciate you being part of the Sofa Squad, and I'll see you in the next video.